And we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you?
Good, although I just got hiccups before the show. I'll try and make it work. Have done in the past. But yeah, finally, we have gaming news to talk about that isn't drama. Now, the week before last week, there was all the GTA stuff and all the cloud chases online. Last week, all the Sony drama with people cancelling the Call of Duty, pre-orders. And this week, it's pretty much non-existent drama, which is good to see. And for once, I don't have any Square Enix rants at all listed, unless I remember something during the show. No Square Enix talk this week, which is going to be new. I think this is our 30th show maybe, and there's no Square Enix rants. So yeah, they're either doing something right or they haven't messed up for once. Either way, it's a win. But yeah, let's just get right into the show. But before we go into the topics, I want to talk about what I've been playing. I've been playing Hard Space Shipbreaker. I was talking about this last week in the show. It's now in Xbox Game Pass. It's a next gen only. How should I put it? Space sim where you tear apart spaceships, and it's one of those games you can just put a podcast on and listen to it, or just music or whatever. It's a very chill game. Like, have you played it yet, Logan? Because I know you said you were putting it off for a bit.
I'm currently not. I'm in my annual horror binge. So I've been doing the Dark Pictures anthology and jumping into those. I'm currently going through the curator's cut of Little Hope, and then it's on to House of Ashes, and then I'll do the Quarry after that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to play at the minute. I keep looking at the Quarry as one of those games. Like, how low can you go because of the price? Like, it launched at £70 in the UK, and it's like, do I really want to pay £70 for a 15-hour horror game? I'm not entirely sure, but it looks good. Like, everyone that's played the Quarry has said it's good. The visuals in that game look nuts, and from the developers behind that game, they make good horror games. Like, I've played
Yeah, I respect them a lot.
yeah, like they made Man of Medan, which I really enjoyed. That recently got a free next gen upgrade. That game already looked good to begin with on Xbox One, and now it's got it had the One X enhancement, and now it's fully optimized for next gen consoles. But yeah, oh yeah, and Overwatch 2's out. Funny thing about that is, I didn't even know that was a thing up until recently. like, like I stay on the pulse when it comes to gaming news, and Overwatch 2 just completely flew over my head. And I think that's because I just don't pay attention to, competitive gaming like I used to. I used to be hardcore back in the Call of Duty back in the day. Like, I even played in a few online tournaments, like for multiplayer Black Ops. Oh, I miss those days. A simpler time. But yeah, there's been a lot. Have you played anything else, Logan?
Just currently, like I said, I've been going through the Dark Pictures anthology, been playing Halo as always. I always check it for the week to see if the reward for the week is something I'm interested in, and if it is, then I'll hop in for a while or not take a break. But doing the Dark Pictures anthology, then the Quarry, and gonna go through my horror backlog that I've got. So I always save it and really plow through them in October.
You listed horror as a topic you wanted to talk about, and I really want to know what you're talking about because you mentioned that Microsoft's stall listings are kind of all over the place, and I kind of have to agree.
Yeah, I brought it up because like you go to their search engine and they finally added categories for like genres you can look for, and like they've got sports, they've got shooters, they've got RPG, they've got classics. They've got most of the spectrum, but then you notice there's a few glaring omissions, and horror is one of them. It's like that is a big time genre. And like if you've been paying attention to the news lately, so many of the major titles coming soon are of that genre. Dead Space remake just had its blowout trailer today. Looks incredible. And that collector's edition, I mean, Chef's Kiss, the fully wearable helmet, just steelbook. It's awesome. And then Callisto Protocol. We have the fourth game in the Dark Pictures anthology coming out in the next week or two. Scorn is coming very soon. You know, Silent Hill rumors all the time. Bloober's working on stuff. I mean, it's a new golden era of horror genre, and the fact that it wasn't even listed in their genres was a glaring omission. And then the fact that even some people thought that horror wasn't a genre worth considering or mentioning is just madness to me.
Yeah, I mean, on the Xbox store, that like we never used to have genre listings, which I always thought was weird because I could remember genre listings being on the 360, and as someone that plays RPGs a lot, I always look for them. And yeah, it is weird. Like if you go on the store right now and just look up, role playing games, there's games in there that shouldn't be there. Like Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is in there. Like last time I checked, GTA 5 is under role playing games, and it's kind of all over the place. But like you're saying, like horror games do need to be listed. The next year is huge for horror. Like you're saying, Scorn, Alone in the Dark remakes coming out. We have the Resident Evil 4 remake. And speaking of remakes, later on the show, we're going to be talking about the prices and all that stuff lately because, oh my, there's just non-stop remake talk. Anyway, the horror thing. The next, I'd say, 5 months is just filled with horror games. Hell, I think zombies should have its own genre now. Because, like, you have Dead Island coming out, or I should say Dead Island 2 coming out in February. Dying Light 2 is getting some more expansions. Zombies are pretty much its own thing at this point. I think maybe Microsoft should try and get someone to sort out the list better because, if a game developer comes out with, let's say, The Witcher, like, that should be listed in its store page as an RPG, so it would automatically go to the RPG section. That just needs to be better. It's not even a big thing. I think people should complain about. It's just it is something I've noticed that the store needs better curation under its topics, and I don't think that would be an expensive fix at all. I think if you look at how far the stores came, if you had like an Xbox One at launch in 2013, the store
Oh
was
man, it's so much better.
yeah, the store was like so bare bones back then. And I remember because we had no backwards compatibility. So like I remember the Xbox and the PlayStation 4, they both launched with like 22 games in the store. And it was kind of weird because you go from like the 360 and the PS3, which had these huge digital libraries, and that was back when AAA games were being listed digitally for the first time at launch, which we didn't really have before. And the store's evolved over time, the UI's gotten better and stuff. But yeah, I think it's something Microsoft they could fix. That cannot be a hard fix, I can imagine. But yeah, we'll move on. You know. We're going to talk about the Activision thing later in the show, but you want to talk about Age of Empires because it's the anniversary, the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, I was wanting to talk about it because this month Xbox is celebrating anniversaries for several of their franchises. Fallout is currently in its 25th anniversary, and they're having some events and sales, and there's a free downloadable dynamic theme for your Series X or S right now. Recommend getting it. It's really cool. And Dishonored is having its 10th anniversary. And Age of Empires is having its 25th. And then Forza Horizon is having an anniversary as well. And especially about the Age of Empires one, there's going to be some surprise announcements and news and stuff they've said in the stream. And fingers crossed, we're finally getting that console port that everybody has been screaming about. I surely that has to be there. If it's not there, then I think a lot of people are going to be miffed and peeved about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm one of the dozen people that want RTS games on Xbox. Like, the funny thing is, like, some people say my personality doesn't match the way I play games. Like, I used to be heavy into RTS games back in the day, but now I only want to play games on console. And there's like, I think maybe like 5 like genuine RTS games on consoles at the minute, and one of them being backwards compatible. That being, I think it's called Super Soldier or something. I can't remember. Anyway, or Supreme Commander. That's it, Supreme Commander 2. But yeah. We need more RTS games. And here's the thing, we were talking about this a few episodes back, that the, play anywhere and smart delivery and all that stuff is very good. And I think the whole, games on PC should be on Xbox. Xbox games are also on PC. It should work both ways. Age of Empires could work on console. Like it could. Like when it comes to an RTS game, I think something like Homeworld. As much as I would love Homeworld 3 to come to Xbox, I'm a realist. I know that that game could not work on a controller because you're controlling spaceships in three-dimensional space. Well, with something like Age of Empires, you're moving horses on a field. Like it's not that difficult. They could easily get it done, and who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us because the developers did say last year that they are thinking about it, and I believe that there will be enough of a market on console to warrant the cost of the development. Maybe that's just me being hopeful, but hey, I'm a positive person. But yeah, Xbox doing all these anniversaries, and you look at Fallout. Like Fallout's had a bunch of anniversaries, and the theme actually automatically downloads without you knowing about it. I found it by accident, so if you go on the Xbox Series console right now, and you'll see the dynamic theme there, and it looks really cool. It's a Fallout, power armor dude with smoke. What can I say? It looks cool. Although I do hope we see more themes, because we almost 2 years into the generation, we have, I think 5 game-related themes and maybe 10 other themes altogether. So 15 themes in 2 years. Either way, I like it. I think it's cool. Honestly, I keep bringing the theme thing up because I want Mass Effect dynamic themes. like I just really want that so much. Actually, speaking of themes, can you remember on the Xbox One there was an app that was available for maybe 2 months where you could download this third-party app and you could have dynamic themes? Did you ever use that?
I don't think I ever did actually, but that sounds cool.
Yeah, I don't know how Microsoft allowed that on the platform, because it would actually chug games if they had them paused in the background. But yeah, and if people still have an Xbox One, that app is still available for download if you had it in the past. But yeah, like I had a Mass Effect Normandy wallpaper going at hyperspace. It was really cool, and I just want that to return. But I like the fact that we're getting new themes with new games, and next year, we're probably going to get a bunch of themes for Starfield, Redfall, Hellblade, and a bunch of first-party games are rumored to come out next year, which we'll talk about later in the show. But yeah, anniversaries, Microsoft doing some good stuff. Although I do think we really need to hear about Age of Empires for Xbox, because, look, as an RTS fan, there's nothing on console. We have Halo Wars 1 and 2, we have the Definitive Edition, and Supreme Commander 2, which, it's a good game if you like RTS games. Anyway, we'll move on. So, now that Crystal Dynamics is free of Square Enix, finally, and all the rights have finally gone over to Embracer Group, which is cool, including the IP listings. Well, it turns out Crystal Dynamics has been putting out emails asking people what would they think of a brand new collection or brand new game of Legacy of Kain, which kind of shocked me because I didn't expect them to get this kind of thing straight away. I thought they maybe wait a year or so, but then again, when Embracer did buy them 2 studios, they did say they'd make the money back within 2 years. So that led me to believe that we're probably going to see a collection of older titles by Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics in the next 2 years. I know, Logan, you said you've never played Legacy of Kain, right?
Yeah, I never did. I wasn't old enough when it first launched, and by the time the series was, in its stride, I was playing other stuff. But it's something I've always wanted to go back and revisit. So if they made it for modern consoles, I'd be thrilled. I personally filled out the survey and check the boxes, bring it to the 3 major platforms, and remaster or remake them, and then make sequels. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I think Embracer buying them studios is the only way these IPs will come back. Even Deus Ex, I honestly think if those studios stayed with, Square Enix, we would never see a follow-up for Deus Ex ever again. So this is good news. It's looking good already. And these collections, I can't imagine them taking that long to put out, because I'm pretty sure there's 16:9 versions of Legacy of Kain on PC. So I can't imagine ports being that much of a hassle. And we will be talking about the whole remakes thing later on the show, but I'm all for collections of older games because it's preserving history. There's no way to play these games unless you have the old consoles hooked up. And depending on what country you live in, because different countries use different connectors, like I can't really plug in my Sega Mega Drive to my modern Samsung TV without buying a certain adapter, because we use SCART leads in the UK, different than the US, but like I can't play them. So like I'm all for these. Good thing about Embrace is that they are known to put out collections of older titles, and hell, they've even put out new content for like games that are like 10 plus years old. Like Titan Quest, they put out an expansion, and I think Titan Quest is like 16 years old, but they put out more content for the remaster. Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning got a new expansion last year. So, I think it's looking good for older IP, and, Embracer have said that they're going to invest in AAA development more than they used to. So it's good stuff coming from them. Basically any chance to crap on Square Enix, I will. I'll take the opportunity. And plus, Square Enix, they took Deus Ex away from me. Like I'm saying that they did that personally. They took Deus Ex personally away from me specifically. No more Adam Jensen games. It's been 7 years since the last one. Like I don't want to wait another 7 years. It's because it's I should say Square Enix. It's their fault. But yeah, I'll blame them any opportunity. But it's good because I like the fact that more people are going to be able to play Legacy of Kain, because you've heard about Legacy of Kain. Most people haven't even played it.
Yeah, I want Legacy of Kain to come back, the series, and then make some new ones. I want Gex the Gecko to come back. That was a game I loved when I was a kid. They also have Thief now, which I think Thief rebooted or remastered some of the classic ones would be awesome. There's always a need for more stealth games. So they have a lot of IP that they can work with, and that's why I'm such a Embracer fan, because they bring back and collect all these classic IPs, and then they give them another shot. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, but at least they give them a second chance at life. Unlike some other companies that do one and done's, like, oh, it didn't meet expectations, so we're just axing it. That IP's dead. See you later.
Yeah. Embrace is going to do some good stuff. And plus, I get to crap on Square Enix. Before I continue, if you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And, we missed 2 weeks a while back, so it's going to take some time getting back to normal. And, Super Chats are live, so if you want to support the channel, it's all gravy. I hate doing the adverts, but you kind of have to as a content creator. Anyway, we'll continue. But yeah, so Crystal Dynamics, I think we will probably see a collection of them in the next year. And you mentioned Gex the Gecko. That was one of my favorite OG PlayStation platformers. Like that was back when we had those really ugly 3D platformers, but they were fun. And Gex the Gecko, I have no idea how that game was able to exist without, copyright issues, because there was a brilliant Star Wars level, there was a James Bond level, there was a Big Trouble in Little China level, and it used very similar music to those films, so I don't know how they got away with it back then, but they did. And if people have never played it, it's a great 3D platformer. I've never really had a problem with old games at all, so that's why I kind of talk in excitement with these older games, because there's that nostalgia there. And think about all the millions and millions of people that have never played Gex the Gecko. 3D platformers are kind of having a good comeback at the minute, and we could say more. Today...
Yeah, he's more. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say he's kind of for people who aren't familiar with Gex the Gecko, he's kind of like a more E-rated version of Conker. There's a lot of similarities between them personality-wise, and how in Conker's Bad Fur Day there was Matrix and Alien and all these other references and missions and stuff, and then in Gex, you mentioned Star Wars, James Bond, yada yada. It's a similar era, and I'd like to see him come back.
Yeah, and today we actually had a lot of big news when it comes to new games we're going to see in the future from CD Projekt Red. This was completely out of nowhere, and it's all good news as well, which is very good to hear. Cyberpunk was launched in 2020 after many delays, and it wasn't in the best shape, and over time they fixed it. The next gen upgrade came out, I think, in February. And honestly, I've only ever played like since the next gen upgrade, like properly, and the game runs butter smooth, really great. And honestly, I think people should play it if they like skipped on it because of the bugs, or they put it off for a bit. But honestly, it's in a great position now. I think people should play it, and even though it's in a great position, people are just saying, "Oh, it's Cyberpunk Edge Runners." That's the one reason why the game's like having a good success at the minute. And even though I haven't finished it yet, I do think it's a great anime. People should watch it. But like, I can't say it's just Edge Runners. Like CD Projekt Red, they actually did a redemption arc for this game. It's in a great position. I think the thing that damaged it most after its upgrade is that I think the next gen upgrade in February came out like 2 days before Elden Ring. Because people were talking about Cyberpunk all the time and it's finally getting fixed, and then Elden Ring comes out and it takes over the news for 3 months. That's all people were talking about for 3 months was Elden Ring. So not the best time, but yeah, it's in a great position now. Anyway, fast forward to today, and they basically announced like 6 games. So Cyberpunk 2077 is actually getting a full-on sequel, which, as someone that's maybe about a third through Cyberpunk, I'll say this, I'll buy it day one. It's obviously going to be in a better position. They'll probably move that to Unreal Engine 5 as well, because that's where The Witcher's moving to. So that's happening. They didn't say there's going to be any more expansions after the one for 2077, but there's a whole Witcher trilogy planned, and also 2 games in the Witcher universe made by external development studios, as well as a brand new IP also made by CD Projekt Red. So that kind of surprised everyone. So we're getting brand new trilogy, games made by other creators, a new Cyberpunk game, and a new IP. And it's like, personally, I think they might be stretching themselves a bit too thin, but then again, they have been hiring almost constantly. What are your thoughts, Logan? Because I know you like their games as well, and it just seems like it's a lot of cool new stuff from CD Projekt Red.
Oh, The Witcher is one of my favorite games ever. Like, that story, that trilogy is iconic and incredibly impactful on modern RPG making. And you've seen the success with the Netflix series as well, and then obviously the books that originated this whole idea for The Witcher, and it's kind of shaped the modern ecosystem for entertainment to where it's like, okay, we've got our books, we've got our games, now we're making television series, we're making movies, we're making, board games, we're making all these things with tie-ins to properties. And Sony's going all in on that. And we can talk about that later, but then Xbox has been dabbling with it as well, with Grounded getting a show, Fallout has a series coming. Now, the Gears of War movie, if it ever gets out of development purgatory, and then the Halo series. But yeah, back to CD Red, I'm ecstatic. I love their games. They're excellent at what they do. Yes, Cyberpunk's launch was an absolute cluster. That can't be diminished. It was horrible. But they've done a great job fixing it, and I greatly look forward to their future works.
Yeah, and like outside of like movies and TV shows and more anime, which I think they're definitely going to do a follow up to season 1. They also said that they're going to include multiplayer, which is kind of strange because originally, like, their investors call, like, I think 4 years ago, like, they were saying like there's going to be Cyberpunk 2077, a new Witcher game, and a multiplayer game set in the Witcher universe. I should say the Cyberpunk universe, and it looks like they've completely changed that. And it doesn't really bother me. As a Mass Effect 3 fan, I can say that you can make a very good multiplayer mode for an RPG. And, like, the multiplayer for Mass Effect 3 was bloody incredible. Like, I played that for hundreds of hours. And it was amazing, But, like, I think multiplayer could work. I am someone that's kind of dipped out of multiplayer at the minute. I am looking forward to getting back into Call of Duty, and I play Fall Guys, but you play as a bean jumping from platform to platform. Like, I'm not going to really call that hardcore multiplayer now, but yeah, CD Projekt Red, looks like they're varying up things a bit. They said they're going to invest more into merchandise, which is cool. Although I will say, like, I like the Witcher TV series. I really need to finish that off as well. They also coming out with a prequel series on Netflix, which I only just found out about, and it looks really good. It's set like 1,000 years or something before the first show, which honestly I have no idea how I never heard about that. But honestly, it looks good. I just think it's cool that CD Projekt Red is getting love again because remember before Cyberpunk released, like they were like one of the most beloved studios in the industry. They had so much goodwill off The Witcher 3 and The Witcher 2, and people thought they were unstoppable. And then the Cyberpunk launch pretty much ruined them. Like all the developers on Twitter were just harassed all the time because they were talking about the buggy game and stuff. And whenever there was like an investors call, you could hear them sound like really down and stuff. But now, like they're at the top of the world again. And yeah, you could say the anime helped. It really did. But honestly, the game's in a great state now. The Witcher 3 is still getting its next gen upgrade later this year, which I only just found out about. And plus, if you've never played The Witcher 3, that's going to be the best time. And that's going to be a free upgrade for current players, which is awesome. And, funny thing is, The Witcher 3 is one of the most successful games last generation. They could have easily have charged for a air quote remaster, but they're not. They're going to give everyone a free upgrade. Although I do think they're also going to do a re-release with all the, DLC and stuff. But you're going to get the DLC stuff for free if you already own it, which is really cool. But yeah, CD Projekt Red, it's good to see them back on top again, especially after that horrible launch. And speaking of remakes and remasters, we have a lot of remaster talk today. Dead Space. Now, I haven't really talked about this much on Twitter, but I will now. Dead Space came out in 2008. I loved it. I think it's an incredible horror game. It was refreshing at the time because it kind of had this Event Horizon vibe going for it. And I loved that film as well. And I love sci-fi. I feel like we don't get enough big budget sci-fi games. And that game just like hit me right where I needed to at the right time. After Mass Effect came out and stuff, it was a good game. And honestly, I believe that games from the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation do not need remakes. The games still look good, they still play good. Hell, if you go on PC, or say YouTube right now, search Dead Space Ultra Mod or Ultra Settings. It looks really good. So whenever people say, oh, this game needs a remake, I always kind of roll my eyes and I'm thinking it doesn't. Max Payne 3 doesn't need a remake. It still looks amazing. It still plays amazing. But I'm a realist. I know that this is the only way Dead Space can come back as a franchise. And that's literally the truth. Like, Dead Space has been a dead IP for almost a decade. And this is the only way it can come back. And, well, thankfully, they announced a remake and honestly, it looked promising. I was going to hate on it at first because I did know it was going to be in the Frostbite engine, and I will hate anything in the Frostbite engine that isn't Battlefield. That's a rant for another day. But it looks amazing, and they showed pre-alpha stuff last year. And anyway, they came out today with a brand new trailer, paid homage to the first trailer back in 2008, and it looks bloody spectacular. Honestly, amazing. Now, the thing about this game is that they're using the zero-G stuff from the sequel. So if you remember from the first game, you actually had to do Superman jumps. So if you're on a wall, you had to point to another wall, and you basically jump from point to point, and you weren't really floating around. Well, in the sequel, you could float around with the rocket boots. Well, they've brought that in. It looks amazing. Honestly, it looks like everything people wanted from a Dead Space remake if wanted to ever happen. The limb destruction's there. It's better than it was in the original. It looks amazing. And the funny thing about this game, it has no loading screens and there's no camera cuts. Meaning when you start the game and all the way to the end, the camera doesn't cut away from the back of Isaac Clarke. And you could actually go back and forth in between areas this time. Back in the original, the chapters were segmented into different areas, and you can go just from one area to the next. Well, in this game, you can go back and forth. I don't know why they'd actually put that in the game, because there's nothing really to collect outside of audio logs, so maybe that's why they've put it in. Either way, the game looks incredible. It looks like it's got some quality of life issues, or I should say quality of life, support. Anyway, Logan, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I'm so excited for this. Day one, I'm a big horror game junkie, so this is like just a gold mine of a genre for us. generation for us going forward is coming. And it looks incredible. I like how the modern innovations they've done with the no loading screens, the revamping and introducing the zero G movements of Dead Space 2 to the first one. They're also expanding the story a bit to where there's more context for some stuff, and then the weapons have been more fine tuned, and it's going to be a pristine experience. And like you, like I think there's been an overabundance of remakes when it comes to certain things, but I even put a tweet out there about it where, like, to me, I don't think you should even consider remaking a game unless it's like at least a decade plus. Like, and Dead Space, to its credit, is like it'll be 15 years old by the time it comes out next year. And a lot has happened, a lot of tech innovations and everything have happened since that game came out. And like you said, this is the one chance that franchise has to come back because we all know how EA has, handled some of their legacy IPs. They literally killed off the studio who made Dead Space because they put them on a Battlefield game. Like, why that was an idea in the first place, I have no idea. But to the fact that it's back, it's one shot. Like, if you love Dead Space and if you want this game to succeed, go out there and support it, like everybody did for Jedi Fallen Order, because that game showed, hey, you know what? People actually like well-crafted single-player games. Who would have thought? And the fact that it has a chance, I'm really excited for it. I'll be honest, I'm not thrilled that it's $70 for a remake, but the game is, 15 years old and it has new innovations and stuff. I get it. If that sounds kind of double standardy, for me saying I didn't like The Last of Us remake at 70, I get it. It kind of does sound a little bit that way. But to me, remaking a game from at least two generations ago that's over a decade old and adding modern stuff and changing some mechanics and adding some story elements to it is different than remaking a game that was a remaster of another game and just doing it every single gen. To me, it's a little bit different. What do you think?
Look, I love Dead Space. I will say that I will get it at launch. My reasoning to get it is because, well, you get 10% off if you have, EA Play or Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So if it's like £69.99 in dollars, it's going to be like 62, which, I'm still on the fence about, kind of, but like you're saying, it's the only way this franchise can come back. It really is. Like, that franchise has been dead for 10 years. And if the fact that this might lead to a Dead Space 4, I don't think we'll get a remake of 2. 2 still looks amazing, by the way. Even on Xbox 360, it still looks amazing. But yeah, I think this is the only way for it to come back. It's got a collector's edition. The collector's edition looks amazing. It's the helmet from Dead Space 1. There's a little statue, notepad and all that stuff, artwork. Although it doesn't say that there's no disc, which kind of surprised me because we see collector's editions announced all the time now, and it says in the small print, no disc included. It's a digital copy, which irks a lot of people, and I think if it's got the disc included, that's going to make people happy. I am a bit on the fence about the price. I think it's $270, around that. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, cool collector's edition. The game looks awesome. I can understand how people are put off about the price. Like, it really is. It's a stupid price. I'm against $70 games, even with the discount. But look, I know this is the only way it's going to come back, so I have to support it, But I completely understand if people don't want to because of the price, because again, the price is just stupid in my opinion. But hey, Dead Space is coming back. It looks awesome, and we should be seeing more gameplay by the end of the year. I'm just guessing because of the way EA does the marketing thing. And by the way, Motive Studios, they did the last Star Wars game, Squadrons. Like, that game really surprised someone. I think EA should really give that studio a lot more money because, like, you played Star Wars Squadrons, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's very very well done. It's like a kind of modern take on the old Rogue Squadron. So I'm absolutely for Motive getting more money for more teams and more projects to do games like this.
Like I know I was saying that the Dead Space 2 looks so good it doesn't need a remake, and Xbox 360 games they don't. But honestly, I've liked their projects so far. I'm probably going to buy whatever they put out because there's some studios that you can just trust. Like Respawn. I know for a fact I'm going to like Respawn's next game. I really am. Even though they are going to come out with a single player game set in the Apex Legends universe. By the way, I cringed so hard thinking that. But really? Apex Legends? The universe? Is that what we're saying now? Anyway, a bit of a tangent. But yeah, if you wonder why I'm rambling on a bit, it's because we've got an abundance of porn bots at the minute. uh, yikes.
Yeah. They're
Uh,
mad you're not talking about Square.
yeah, speaking of Square and like crap things, we're gonna move on to Stadia now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Stadia was announced in I believe 2018, 2019. They announced that it's going to use basically technology in between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. It was like a 10 teraflop machine, and they were advertising 8K 120 FPS, and people were like, "This is amazing," you know. This is going to be streaming only, and people fell for it, or shall I say, some people. And there are people that on podcasts and content creators, they just all of a sudden switch their preferences for some reason. Maybe they were paid, maybe they weren't, but like just all of a sudden believing in Stadia, this cloud technology, when I honestly don't know who the market was aimed at. Because think about it, if you game on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, or PC, like you buy the majority of your games on your favorite platform. But who was going to change their platform other than the people that were just making content about it? Who's going to change their favorite platform to start buying all the games on that service? And that service didn't even make sense. You had to pay for the Pro membership, and then you got the occasional game, but you still had to buy games outright. They should have done the Game Pass model, but Google has this large field, this graveyard, so to speak, of cancelled and delayed and canned products, and Stadia is the next one in line. Google a few years ago were pushing Google Glass all the time. When was the last time you heard anyone talk about Google Glass? You haven't. That thing's been dead for years. It's a cool technology, but nobody wants to use that. You look stupid, you know? If it was like, realistic, normal glasses that people couldn't notice, people would be all over it. But it's the fact that you had this huge thing on your face that made you look like Robocop, you know? And then you have Stadia. And look, I use xCloud every single day. I do think there's a market for cloud, but I think that market for cloud is only for Xbox and PlayStation and PC. Nintendo doesn't really do the streaming thing, but if you have a library of games on PC, there's GeForce Now. If you play games on PlayStation, you have PlayStation Now or Plus. I get all their services mixed up, but you can stream PlayStation games on your mobile. And on Xbox, you have xCloud, your existing libraries. And then you have their Game Pass service, which is another incentive. But, like, Stadia, who was that made for? Like, did you ever think, Logan, that, oh, you know what, I'm going to change my preference of my number one, preferred system to this Stadia service? I'm guessing no.
No. Stadia was never a thing that even attracted my interest. Amazon Luna hasn't either. The tried and true Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, they've been in the business for 20 plus years, all of them. They know what they're doing. They're the ones that I trust for gaming innovation and content. I mean, I applaud Google for trying. Amazon seems to be doing better than they were, so kudos to them with Luna so far. But I like the idea of Stadia, like the cloud. You take your controller, you can play it anywhere and stuff. But the business model they had behind it, the investments, the creativity for their studios, all of it was just, it was a giant cluster how they managed it. And then the fact that when Xbox bought Bethesda, they decided, you know what? that's more money than we really wanted to spend. We're out. Like, you really give up on first party creativity just because somebody decides to invest more in their own first party. I mean, that makes it sound like this was more of a side project that you hoped would just make you a lot of money without much effort. That doesn't make it sound like you were fully committed to this anyway. And then the fact that now they kill it off and now they're running and crying to whatever regulatory power and talking with Sony and trying to team up with them against it. Like, oh, we just couldn't compete or this or this. I'm like, get out of here. Google is one of the few of this earth that have the same tier of resources and money as Microsoft. If they really, really wanted to go all in or compete, they could have. They didn't. That's their choice.
Yeah, that's true. Before I give my take on it, Logan, you might want to check to see if you've got anything downloading because you were cutting in and out now and then. But yeah, like Google has endless money, much like Microsoft. Like if they were all in, they could have bet big and put a few billion in, but they didn't. And the sad thing is, like, there were games announced to come out to Stadia, or should I say Stadia, next week, or even as late as November, and the developers weren't even told. And it's like that. Like, I feel sorry for the developers. Hopefully they can get picked up. High on Life, that really cool game that comes to Game Pass in December. Well, that was originally a Stadia exclusive. Thankfully, that fell apart, and we're gonna get that on Game Pass. But like, I see these streaming services pop up, and they've been popping up for a decade now, and they never succeed. That's why I think xCloud and whatever PlayStation's doing will succeed, because they have these corporations that have existing libraries with existing markets that will play those games. Like, I remember, and if anyone is older than the age of, I don't know, 17 is listening to this, you remember there was a service back in 2009, 2010 called OnLive. It was a streaming service back then, and I used to play games on there just to test out because I won a voucher. I owned 2 games on the platform, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter and The Witcher. Both performed and looked terrible for your streaming. Like, oh my god, absolutely terrible. Like the latency was awful. Absolutely awful. But you could play it on PC, laptops, iPad was a big, market for them. But you could also like order this little tiny box which had like an Ethernet cable and a controller which you plugged into a television. And, they eventually killed off the service. It had some cool ideas running for it, but that was back in 2009, 2010. Like, it was terrible. Like, absolutely terrible. And, Xbox, xCloud is picking up steam. And I've been using xCloud for the past year-ish, and it's gotten better. I play Fortnite every single day on my phone. I don't like Fortnite, by the way. I just do it for the Microsoft reward points. But I play Fortnite nonetheless via xCloud, and it performs great. I have 60 frames, it never drops, and if anything does drop, it's the resolution, but you're still keeping up with the frame rate, which in my opinion is the right way to go. But, like, seeing Google do this, they went about it the wrong way. And honestly, do you know there's a rumor when Stadia was announced that they were going to come out with a physical console which you could buy? And it turns out like that was the only like rumor that wasn't true, or maybe they shelved that product as well. But it's a shame because, there's a lot of people working over at the Stadia branch at Google that never knew about it. Like, they found out 45 minutes before we did, which is so sad because there's, like, I think a few hundred people working on the Stadia thing over there. And, the good thing is that Google has enough money that they're actually going to reimburse everyone. So, whether you bought microtransactions, full games, or even hardware, you're going to get your money back. So if you've spent money on hardware or games, get in contact with them, you'll get every single penny back, which is the good thing to do. Honestly, couldn't have went about that in any better way. I saw a forum the other day where there's some people that have spent over $1,000 on games. Thankfully, they're going to get that money back. But that was the big risk with Stadia, that if they were to shut it down, you would lose access to all your games. But like Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, Steam, Epic Games Store, like those have legacy collections, like in the legacy fans. People aren't going to abandon them. They're always going to have fans and they're always going to exist. But Google just popping out of nowhere like Diglett, expecting people to generate a fan base for them. They were the least fan centric like Twitter account out of all of them. Xbox and PlayStation, at least they interact with fans. Nintendo not as much. They put on big shows for the gamers. Some more than others, but it just seems like Stadia just didn't even try. And I think that's where we have Microsoft and Sony. They are putting money into the cloud. They're going to succeed. Both of them will succeed, just in different ways. And Google will just... The thing is, they said they're going to put that technology to other use. And I think they're just going to put that towards mobile. There's billions to be made in mobile games, and they're probably just going to do that. But yeah, if you've put money into Stadia, make sure you get that back, because when the servers shut down, all your games go bye-bye, unfortunately. Anyway, we'll move on. Just wondering, Logan, did you know anyone in real life that used Stadia at all?
Not personally, no. I've seen people on Twitter who used it, but not anyone I know who mentioned it at all, aside from jokes or talking about just various things that are happening to it. And speaking of which, Tequila Softworks was one of the companies that was making an exclusive, and their game is now going multi-platform. So thankfully, that game has been saved, and it will happen.
And they turned down a single-player Kojima game, which is mind-boggling.
Madness.
Yeah, like, what were they thinking? Maybe that's the game we're getting on Xbox now. Who knows? But yeah, it's a bit of a sad time for them. But like Stadia and Google were clearly not in it at all, like how they should have been. But yeah, we'll move on. It's just a shame, really, because the amount of developers that have been hurt because of this is kind of shocking. Anyway, we'll move on. So, Logan, you wanted to talk about Halo. Now, I'll preface this. I do not play Halo multiplayer because I'm kind of zoned out of multiplayer at the minute. Like, I play Fall Guys because I generally find it fun. I don't care about battle passes or like leveling up or anything. I play that and I have fun with friends and all that stuff. And I'm looking forward towards playing Call of Duty because one of my mates is playing Call of Duty again, which has me excited because we're going to be playing the same game together. We haven't played in like a decade. I don't play multiplayer. I'm zoned out. I don't really play live service games. You won't see me talk about Destiny or The Division much outside of playing betas. They're not for me, and I've accepted that. Maybe one day one of those games will come along and I'll like it. I will say this: I've played Halo Infinite's campaign, and I loved it. I loved how it was open, but not too open. It wasn't bloated with side quests. It felt like a very focused game in an open setting, and I loved how it expanded on Halo's lore. And I loved the gameplay. I thought the gameplay was fantastic. But Logan, you have the floor because the multiplayer thing is just something I don't really know about.
Yeah, it wasn't much about multiplayer I was actually going to talk about, except that I was happy that they're remaking the pit for Halo Infinite, and it sounds like they're remaking some other classic maps. So look forward to that. Mainly, what I was going to talk about was the behind-the-scenes rumblings that have now been corroborated by Jez Corden and some others about the fact that at one point before it even launched, they were strongly considering switching to Unreal Engine for the game because Slipspace has just been such a slog to teach people, and then they're only there for a little while on contract and then they're gone. So by the time they get up to speed on it, they only have a little while left to actually do where they're gone. And so how that drastically slowed progress. And then some of the management oversights and things were causing problems with staff and everything. And the fact that apparently there's rumblings that they're actually considering a full switch of engine at this point, and how they would deal with that, and then possibly some new projects, and how Tatanka might become its own standalone game instead of just being a mode for Infinite. And I just thought that was worth discussing and saying that I find it fascinating. I personally don't see an engine change as the magic potion that's going to fix everything, but if it can at least give developers easier time to work on things and give them more time to actually put towards crafting stuff, making content for the games, and it's not so difficult, and they can make standalone games. I see that as a positive. What do you think?
I mean, like we hear all the time about developers switching engines, and honestly, for the most part, like it actually makes me a little bit happy when I hear some games are moving to Unreal. Like if people have been paying attention to me for longer than 5 minutes, you know that I hated the fact that Mass Effect Andromeda used Frostbite. Right? I didn't like the way the game looked. And honestly, that game didn't even have, I should say, the engine didn't have a third person camera tool. So the team behind Andromeda had to make a camera in the engine, right? So when they were kind of announced that, Mass Effect is moving back to Unreal Engine, one, I lost my mind. I was hyped because, one, Mass Effect has never looked realistic. It's never went for realism, right? I don't think good graphics means realistic, right? I think good graphics means it accomplishes its goal to what it looks like. Like, look at the Arkham games. They look good, they don't look realistic. And for me, Mass Effect has to look a very specific way, and they got that because of Unreal Engine and the way the texture asset loading and everything looked. The baked-in lighting system, and I love the idea that Mass Effect's going to that. The next Tomb Raider game is going to be in Unreal Engine, which I was kind of disappointed about because I thought Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider are two of the best looking games I've ever seen. So who knows how that's going to turn out? The Witcher is moving to Unreal Engine. I know why. Unreal Engine supports bigger worlds now at higher levels of detail. CD Projekt Red were clearly having issues. Like let's face it, The Witcher 3 is a masterpiece, right? But it launched with bugs. I have never really played open world Unreal Engine games that have had many bugs ever, right? At all. And it's a good engine. People like that engine. And I've been told by developers on certain IPs I won't talk about, they love the idea that games are going back to Unreal Engine. I kind of gave that away, but the thing is, I love the idea that developers are going to get to use the tools that they want to use, right? Now, when I hear about the whole Halo thing, I don't think Halo is changing to Unreal Engine for Halo Infinite content. That doesn't make any sense at all, because they'd have to literally remake everything. Everything. It would be a waste of resources. They'd basically relaunch Halo Infinite just without the launch, basically. Now, them moving going forward to Unreal Engine for future Halo projects, I could see. Because the thing is, content delivery is king. And we've seen in the past that the engine is held back, content delivery. Like, look at Destiny, the first game. The developers had a rough time making content, as much content as they wanted early on, because of the limitations of the hardware and the engine. Like, the stories written by Kotaku, as much as I hate Kotaku, they've posted some good Destiny content in the past when it comes to the engine and development. And it's like, Destiny was really rough at first. Now, they're in a better position, not because of the engine, but because of the tools. And like, if they really want to change to Unreal Engine, I get it. But the fact that they spent $500 million on an engine, although that did include like the cost of development of the game, but I don't know. Like, I think it's okay, really, as long as developers, have the best tools. I don't really care what the engine they use, unless it's not Frostbite. Never use Frostbite. I will talk about, like, I do rant about Andromeda a lot because I don't like the way it looks. Like, I think Andromeda, the thing is, right, a bit of a tangent. I think games look very specific ways due to its engine, right? If you play Gears of War, you know for a fact that's Unreal Engine, just because of the way it looks, right? You play Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, different art style, but you know for a fact that is Unreal Engine, right? But when they change engines, they don't get to keep the same look and spirit alive, right? Like, look at Titanfall. They were using the Source engine, right? The bloody Half-Life 2 engine. And, I don't think, would a Half-Life, I should say, would a Titanfall 3 in Unreal Engine look good? Honestly, I don't know. I don't think it would look the same. Like, Logan, you've probably noticed, right, that certain IPs and, like, engines do have a very specific look.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you have multiple games in a series on a certain engine, it's like it become creates a whole aesthetic and like lighting and shadows and facial and backgrounds and movements, mechanics, everything just has a certain just aura about it on a certain engine compared to others. Frostbite is much maligned for good reason. And then, Unreal Engine is used by so many developers for great reason because it's a lot easier to use, it has great tools, and it's been around for bloody ever. They're on the fifth version now. And like especially to me, I like the idea of an engine switch for this particular situation it takes, and the fact that Xbox already has a good relationship with Epic, and so many of their own studios use Unreal. You have guys that are basically the masters of the engine with like alongside Epic themselves at Coalition. They'll have their own toolkits and insights and knowledge to share, just like they're doing to help Undead Labs with State of Decay 3, which is switching to Unreal Engine. So to me, it seems like a really smart move, but I do understand the concerns about what if, Halo Infinite 2 or Halo 6 or whatever they would call it, their new project, if it was an Unreal, how would it compare visually or, systematically gameplay wise to the games that 343 have made in Slipspace? But, not all Halo games have been in Slipspace. I mean, there were the older, Bungie era games that were in a different engine themselves. So, yet they were, now we play them and you have Slipspace and it feels very similar. So, to me, I think they could still do it, but I understand the concern.
Yeah, I know Jez from Windows Central was talking about like he doesn't know the whole situation. I think Jez Corden's always like spot on with the stuff he posts. Like I don't think like people should really be concerned. Like they're not going to shift all the content right now. That Tatanka thing, the whole battle royale thing, I could see it being its own thing. I'm going to rant about battle royales while we're talking about it. Whenever I say that I think battle royales have played out, I always get people saying, "But Jamie, it's just another game mode." And here's my problem with people saying that. We all know it's not just another game mode, right? It's always treated as its own thing. And that's my problem with it. I've been writing about this for the past year. The reason I didn't want Halo to originally have Battle Royale is because every single game that's gotten Battle Royale, it's taken away the focus from the multiplayer for everyone. Like, do you see Dr. Disrespect or Tim the Tapman on YouTube play Call of Duty regular anymore? No, they play Warzone all the time, right? Battle Royale streamers, they call them. And I feel that if, Halo gets a Battle Royale, people are going to pay less attention to the regular game modes. Like, that's a worry. And I don't even play regular Halo multiplayer anymore, I've seen the same thing happen to Call of Duty. I know for a fact it would happen with, Battlefield. Well, Battlefield's a mess in itself. I'm just going to blame Frostbite for that as well. I'm going to blame Frostbite for the porn bots. Why not? But yeah, Battle Royales, I don't know. Although I can see them launching it as its own separate thing because you do have these streamers and, people that watch the Battle Royale content that's the only thing they're interested in. Personally, I don't see it, but I understand that it's a thing. But yeah, I don't think people should worry about it at all. It's not going to be a problem. At least it's not going to be a problem anytime soon. Halo's still going to get content in Infinite. There's going to be campaign content, I believe, in the future, which I'm really waiting on. The co-op for Halo Infinite has more achievements, which is really cool. I really need to look those up. But yeah, I don't think people should be worrying about Halo in the short term or long term. I think Halo's in good hands. Honestly, I think Halo is in good hands with 343. And here's why. People complained about Halo 4's multiplayer, but not the campaign. People complained about Halo 5's campaign, but not the multiplayer. So for Halo Infinite, they just had to get both right. And it turns out that their gameplay for Halo Infinite satisfied the old Halo fans that can't get past Halo 3. they satisfied them. Like, people love that gameplay, and then the new people love that gameplay as well. It's just all about content delivery, and I feel that in 2022, not all developers that make, multiplayer content, they figured out how to get it out regularly. You look at Fortnite, they have one map, right? They have one map, and they rinse that for an entire year and a half, and then they flip it upside down, and, this place has got a mountain now, and it's covered in snow. But people play these multiplayer experiences now for battle passes. We used to play multiplayer content to get better, raise our KD ratio, have fun. And ever since they introduced and I don't mean Halo, I mean like multiplayer in general. People used to play multiplayer for fun and getting better. Now people play multiplayer to get more cosmetics and battle passes. Like, am I the only person that's noticed this? Maybe it's because I'm stepping out on the outside and I'm looking at everyone else play multiplayer. Like, do I have a point, Logan? Because remember, 10 years ago, back with Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo, you played to rank up, and that rank just got you a different emblem. But now people care about what they look like. Like, are they going to have, like, cat ears or something? Like, people care about the battle passes, which, think about it. You pay for a premium game to earn multiplayer crap cosmetics. That is mind-boggling to me. I know it's a thing, and I know it's how free-to-play multiplayer is, monetized in 2022. But people don't play multiplayer for the reasons they used to 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, gaming itself has evolved quite a bit in the last 20 years, and especially since the 360 PS3 era when achievements and trophies became a thing. Like it used to be, we just played games for fun and we enjoyed them, or we would try to accomplish some task for, gamer credit or just pride or whatever. But then they brought in achievements and trophies, and it's like, hey, can I beat this game doing this, or can I pull off this crazy feat, or I find all the collectibles, or I do this or this. And then those blew up and have become a huge source of, like, there's sites devoted just to trophies and achievements and getting them. There are people who make their entire content creation profile based on those. And so it seems like cosmetics and other things in the microtransaction era are a natural evolution of gaming itself, and it just seems that these things have coalesced into gaming, and it's just a thing at this point, and people like them or they hate them, or some people are kind of like, I like this one, I don't like this one, I'll dabble here and there. But it definitely does seem like it has been a big change in at least partially the focus of multiplayer gaming.
Because, I see on my feed a lot, like, people will say, like, I finished the Battle Pass, I have no reason to play multiplayer. And that just boggles my mind. It's like that we used to play multiplayer to get better. I remember I used to be terrible when Black Ops first launched in, 2010? And then I became so good, I did tournaments. Like, I was excellent in Call of Duty Black Ops. Oh, how I miss those days. Can we go back? I have so much nostalgia for the Xbox 360 generation. But like back then, you'd play and you'd rank up, and all that would mean is that you got a little logo next to your name that was slightly different. That was it. Now people want to dress up as, like, a gingerbread man or something. I don't care. People want to dress up in multiplayer when all you can see is your hands for the most of the time. Like, when you're playing a first-person shooter, does it really matter what you look like? Anyway, that's a rant for another day. But yeah, we're going to move on to the whole juicy stuff now. But if you're enjoying the show, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. Super Chats are live, so if you want to support the channel, all that stuff's gravy. Let's talk about PlayStation, because it affects Xbox, and what affects Xbox, we have to talk about it. So it came out today. Herman Holst from PlayStation did an interview, and it was a regular interview that these CEOs and chairmen of the boards always talk about. Well, it turns out he was asked a bunch of questions about the future of PlayStation. And the future of PlayStation sounds a lot like Xbox in 2016. So, yeah, so they're going to start doing basically 50-50, single-player content and multiplayer content. The games as a service stuff is going to be day and date on PC. The single player stuff is going to be around a year from PC. Now, that in itself sounds like what Microsoft was starting to do back in 2016 when they start putting Quantum Break on PC. Even though that was day and date, all the other games are day and date, but like having crossplay between PC and console, like it's just sounded very much like Xbox in 2016 when everyone was giving hell to Microsoft. Like, oh, should I buy a console or PC? It's a question up in the air now. You don't need to buy an Xbox when you can buy a PC. That was a meme we all had to put up with for years. And now PlayStation's doing it. And what's funny is, like, even though Microsoft's in third, PlayStation seem to be copying their business strategy. It's a bit peculiar, isn't it? And the thing is, it gets even more interesting. It's that there's going to be more cross-generation games. Which is funny because they believed in generations 2 years ago before the release of the consoles. And here we are. Microsoft is on the edge of their 2-year period of where they were going to come out with cross-generation games. And do you know what the last cross-generation game is for Microsoft? Pentiment, which comes out next month. That's it. After that, there's no more cross-generation games. From what I can see listed, nothing. Absolutely nothing is cross-gen. So, PlayStation's pretty much doing what Microsoft did. But Microsoft got hell for all this back in the day. Isn't that a bit weird, Logan? That PlayStation, they're doing everything Microsoft did, and it's fine now?
Yeah, Sony is the master of mind and groupthink, and just for some reason, there's a lot of loud people out there that see things through a shade of blue and with their glasses, and right or wrong, they're very vocal, and it just Xbox, gets a ton of flack for doing something, and then they get torn to shreds over it. And then if Sony sees it and they're like, that was actually a pretty good idea, we'll wait a while and then we'll implement it when everybody's thinking about something else, and then they'll call us geniuses. And lo and behold, they get away with it. It's like the Breaking Bad, meme. It's like they can't keep getting away with this. It just it keeps happening, like to a T. Like Xbox does something, and then a few years later, Sony does it, and then it's considered the greatest thing since sliced bread. But it's the same thing, or just a slightly different version. Yet, because they didn't do it first, they're not getting crap for it. And I don't know. It's just the whole hamster wheel has been spun on this, and it's just like Xbox I guess they just have to put their shield up and just deflect criticism and march along and just keep doing what they're doing if they believe it's right, because clearly Sony thinks that what they're doing is right too.
And Herman Hulst did say, the majority of the money they make is in single-player games. But if you think about it, that's all they do. So he's bound to say that because that's their only gaming revenue from games. Single-player content. So that kind of goes without saying. So people are running with that. It makes no sense. Microsoft, they have single-player games. They have single-player games with multiplayer. And the multiplayer, has external support, such as microtransactions, battle passes, season passes, all that stuff. And, Microsoft, they have a diverse variety when it comes to revenue in the Xbox portfolio. And PlayStation doesn't. Not really. They don't really do multiplayer. They come out with these single-player games that don't really have multiplayer. And the game comes out, and it sells for a few months, usually quite well. But then after that, it's gone. The game's not making money anymore. Whereas Microsoft, they have single-player games without multiplayer content, and they sell the same way. And then they have games like Gears and Halo and Forza that have, microtransactions and stuff. And these games generate a lot of revenue for these companies, which they can feed back into game services such as Game Pass and all that stuff. I think Herman Hulst is seeing the money that Microsoft's making. And even though they're in number third, really think about it. Microsoft's in number third, and they are paying so much to make more games. Really think about it. Microsoft's putting more money into gaming than anyone else, and they are number 3. They're number 3. in the gaming space, and they've just bought a $70 billion gaming company. I think Herman Hulst wants a new yacht, right? And this is his only way. So he gets his shiny new yacht by charging, more for PlayStations. They start charging for $70 games, and, they put out games as a service content. Because PlayStation can't lean on the single player, third person, over the shoulder stuff forever. They can't do that. They can make them games, but they can't rely only on those games. For PlayStation to grow, they have to expand. Now that affects Microsoft because, Microsoft, they have Game Pass. They rely on Game Pass. And PlayStation's been known to charge and keep games off Game Pass. So it kind of it goes back and forth, like one affects the other, Although it just goes to show Microsoft doing the whole PC thing was right all along. I've never thought that people only buy PCs just because the games are, not only on Xbox anymore. Like PC gamers game on PC, console gamers game on PC or on console. Like everyone listening right now, chances are that you're a console only gamer, or at least you mainly game on console. Like hell, I used to play RTS games as a kid on PC, and that was it. So when Halo came out on the original Xbox and Knights of the Old Republic, I played those games on Xbox because I prefer Xbox and I prefer consoles. Although I did play my RTS games every single day. Love RTS. But yeah, like PlayStation, they're learning from Xbox. And you have Nintendo doing their own thing. They dabble in mobile more and more. There's mobile games coming out all the time by Nintendo, and some of them succeed, some of them don't. And it's all these different business strategies, And the funny thing is, the whole thing I've seen going trending today is that the 1 year cycle in between a single player releasing on PlayStation, and that single player game releasing on PC. Because for the longest time, people were like, oh no, it's 4 years. It's 4 years in between the PlayStation release and, PC. Then Horizon Zero Dawn came out on PC. And people were like, okay, it's 3 years. And then Spider-Man. And then people were like trying to change the narrative so much because they've dogged on Microsoft for so long for doing the day and date. And look, I don't like calling out people on the podcast or on my channel, but I'm going to anyway. I think people that have said for years that doing the whole day and date thing is a bad idea. They are absolutely nuts, right? Because gamers that game on PlayStation do not care, or at least they shouldn't. Like, I play on Xbox. I don't care for games on PC. Let them buy the game. And as we've seen, Microsoft's games on Steam sell bloody well, right? And that's more money for Microsoft. So, wouldn't you think these PlayStation fanboys would want the same? I don't know. But it's just weird how the back and forth for years has literally gone for years, and the whole, day and date ruins the console industry and, sales. It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I'm trying to not swear on my own show, but I'll say this. Everyone that said the day and date thing's stupid for years, they're bloody idiots. They really are. They have no idea what they're talking about. Yes, maybe I did business at college, and I was actually okay at it. But it doesn't take, an expert to realize that, more money coming from different sources equals more. I don't know. Logan, I've been rambling, but, you know what I mean, right? Microsoft clearly made the right decision doing PC day and date releases. It doesn't hurt console sales.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember when there were some in the Xbox community who were vocal and quite upset,
Yep.
and when they announced day one for console and Xbox, and they're like, "Why should I have an Xbox then if I can just get it on PC too?" It's like, what's the point in having a console? Xbox is gonna kill consoles. It's like Phil is forsaken us. Why is he doing this? And it's like, get out of here. And then it's like, they don't care where they get your money from. If you play it on PC, great. If you play it on Xbox, great. If you play it on your phone via xCloud, great. As long as you subscribe to Game Pass or you buy their games, they are tickled pink. Just be getting your money. They don't care. It's a shared ecosystem. Xbox is this, it's like the force. It's all around us. It binds us together. It's a massive ecosystem. They don't care. As long as they get your money and you support them and you buy their products and they take good care of the products, everybody's happy. PlayStation is finally seeing that, and they went in on that cash cow system. So to me, the idea that it being on another system within the shared ecosystem somehow harms my experience of being able to play an Xbox game on my couch or on my phone is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I mean, you have all these businesses around the world and industries that have changed over the past 2 decades. You know, music went from CDs to digital, and iTunes pretty much changed the music industry to the point where, you know, Steve Jobs had to sit down with all the record labels and convince them that single songs should cost 99 cents. And everyone laughed at him and said he was absolutely crazy. But considering the amount of piracy was going on at the time for music, he made the right move and he convinced all these studios and production houses to change the whole business model. And it was a success to the point where the charts went off iTunes. And, you know, over time it went to streaming. Streaming is the number one way of listening to music now, be it Spotify or Apple Music. And the same with books. Books went digital. You know, in the blink of an eye, nobody really buys physical books anymore. You know, comics also digital. Although I will say the physical feel of a comic is way better than digital comics. Like every single time. You know, TV shows and movies pretty much gone digital. Like all the big TV shows at the minute are streaming shows. You know, you have Breaking Bad. Well, Breaking Bad was digital in the UK. That's a different story. But you have Stranger Things. You know, what do you call it? The Mandalorian, Andor, all that stuff. Pretty much the big streaming shows. You know, Lord of the Rings show. I haven't watched it yet, but that thing cost $1 billion, and it's a
It's
stream.
awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a watch, but it's a streaming show. Like that could not work on television. I've talked about it before. Like the way syndication works and the way these shows are made just doesn't work. The Mandalorian could not be made for TV. It just wouldn't because of the amount it costs. But like, it's going to happen with video games, and it's been happening. Look at Xbox, right? They came out with a console in the year, 2001? And it was a moderate success. And they relied on selling a console than selling games. Then on Xbox 360, they were making money off expansions and map packs via digital sales, as well as selling consoles and video games. And the subscription service via Xbox Live. And then Xbox One, pretty much the same until halfway through the generation when they figured Game Pass works, and it works. Like Microsoft shut down things, right? Zune shut down. Windows Phone shut down because they weren't successful. Game Pass has been here for 5 years now, and it works, right? It works so much that, you know, it has developers coming out and saying, look, we still make money and sales despite the games launching in the service, right? So where's my point with all this? PlayStation's moving their business model to the modern era, which means day and date with PC, more digital. Because think about PlayStation's business strategy for console gaming is sell console, sell game. That's it. That's literally it. They don't have microtransactions. They don't have games with battle passes or anything. They don't. They have single player game, sad dad over the shoulder game, sell consoles. That's it. That's their entire business model when it comes to games. They just move it to the 21st century. And I think it's okay, you know. It makes Microsoft invest more, then it'll make PlayStation invest more. It's all good. You know, but I think we'll actually move on now because what else can we say? Herman Holst has basically said what we've been saying for years. Day and date makes sense. And even though they're saying it's going to be a year, I guarantee you within the next 2 years, their single-player games will also be on PC day one and or their service. Clip that, whoever wants to clip it. Yeah, we'll move on. You know, Activision Blizzard, the deal has been going on since January. People have been seething online. They've been cancelling pre-orders left and right for Call of Duty because of Microsoft. And look, I understand people listening. We are all sick of the Activision Blizzard King deal. It's been the number one story this year. And honestly, when the deal's done, I can't wait for it to be done so we can stop talking about it. However, it kind of affects Microsoft in a huge way. So, Logan, where are we up to with the whole Activision Blizzard deal? Because I know Saudi Arabia, they said they were okay with the deal and all that stuff.
Yeah, the latest is Saudi Arabia is a okay with it. They passed it with no reservations, no concessions. They're like, "Yep, you're good to go. Put a stamp on it. Next, move along." Then CMA, which is governing for UK, they've processed into phase two, so that is going into March of next year. They have a deadline of March. I can't remember what date, but March of next year is by the time that they have to make all their filings and all their arguments known and decide whether we're okay with this or not. If we're not okay with it, will we talk to concessions, or if we can't find concessions, this thing will just be blocked or go to court. So, at the very least, this is not done until March of next year. Okay, FTC apparently has it's been leaked out that their um, final thoughts or whatever are going to be resolved around late November this year. And the FTC, for those who aren't aware, is for the US. Okay, so the US market is likely going to have a good idea of what's going to happen with the deal in regards to over here in November. They'll either, like Hoglaw says, great lawyer, great tech journalist, follow him if you have any interest in business and gaming and pop culture legalities, licenses, etc. He's much better at explaining this than I am, but I will try my best. But basically, the FTC is different than other regulatory bodies in other countries in that it doesn't say yes or no. It simply allows something to happen and like can always revisit at a later date if they find a new problem. Or they say straight up, no, we have a problem with this and we're suing you and taking this to court. So the US one's a little more complicated in that regard, but by late November, we should know, okay, are we heading towards this is going through? Are we having concessions? Or is this sucker going to court? So in the US at least, looks like late November, we're going to have a lot more clarity. Not saying it's done, but a lot more clarity. And then the EU has finally started, and November 8th is their deadline for going into phase two or saying yes or no just up front to the deal. Fully expect it to go to phase two, so that's going to jump it to February to March ish of next year for them to get their act together on this. So at the end of the day, end of story, this thing isn't over. We're finally coming over to hill a little bit, but we still got some journey to it, and just strap in. It's gonna go on for a while, especially with Jim making little, private trips to Brussels to make arguments on PlayStation's behalf, and now Google all of a sudden saying, you know what, we dropped the ball on Stadia, but we could really put, spike in Microsoft over this about cloud. So what the heck? We'll just argue on Sony's behalf with some qualms in the regulatory bodies, and this thing is just going to drag on. I know you're tired of it. I'm tired of it. My neighbor's dog is tired of it. Our listeners are tired of it. But until it's done, every time news comes up about it that could impact the gaming industry, we have to talk about it. It's just a necessary thing.
Yeah, before I continue, I'll say this: like, when the Activision deal is done, I promise we'll go an entire month without talking about acquisitions, right? like, just because it's all been acquisition talk, and it's so annoying. But we have to talk about this, and yeah, like Jimbo flying over, to basically look, Jimbo's a narc. That's kind of the impression I got. Like, I think what Americans would say is a tattletale, like. He's kind of grassing on people. That's a British thing. But yeah, hearing that he flew over is a bit sus. And here's the thing: Microsoft put out a website page yesterday on the whole Microsoft, Activision deal that says that even when the deal's done, Microsoft's going to be in third still. And I actually had to think about this, and I think they're right. but I don't think in the way people might think. So, like, Nintendo is obviously going to be the biggest in Japan and all that stuff worldwide. You know, their games sell like 20 plus million each time. Then you have PlayStation, who is more of a worldwide brand. Like, across Europe, heavy PlayStation. But when it comes to Xbox, it's mainly America, UK, Canada, Ireland, you know, bit of France, and Brazil and Mexico. That's pretty much it. But, like, you know, PlayStation's a worldwide brand. So even when the Activision deal's done, and let's say hypothetically Call of Duty is Xbox only 7 years from now, I don't think that makes people automatically just, like, the masses are going to abandon ship. Will there be a couple of million people that will switch? Absolutely. But I don't think, like, Microsoft's not going to be number one all of a sudden. But Microsoft can be in a very comfortable third. Because think about it, the Xbox 360 sold like 90 million consoles, and that was a success, and they were number 2 that generation. Technically number 3 when it was all said and done, because the Wii sold over 120 million consoles, PlayStation caught up in the end, but nobody considers the 360 as a failure when it comes to sales. It still sold like 90 million, and that's a bloody good, you know, sales figure. So I think them just getting Call of Duty, you know, it's going to bolster the lineup. Game Pass will be in the hundreds of millions, probably 100 million subscribers when they get, you know, Call of Duty games day one. But yeah, I mean, the deal, I think it'll be done. I think it'll go through, hopefully sooner rather than later, so we can stop talking about it, and hopefully so we can get more backwards compatible games. Wink, wink. Yeah. And plus, I really want those Transformers games backwards compatible. That's the dream. But honestly, you know, it'll work out better for all the developers over there at Activision, because if you've been reading the news, they've had horrible work conditions for years, for many reasons. You know, I noticed that the World of Warcraft community are very much in favor of Microsoft getting Activision Blizzard. So that'll be them happy. Honestly, I think they'd sort that out. Honestly, I think they'd put World of Warcraft on consoles. So anyway, I'm going to give it a go anyway. But yeah, Logan, have you got anything else on this topic? Because, like, I'm all Activisioned out.
Basically, the last thing I have to say is, you know, worst case scenario, say this just doesn't happen. And for whatever reason, right or wrong, it's just not allowed to happen. They can't do it. They can't consummate the deal. It's over. Whatever. The sun will still come up the next day. They will recoup that money and they can use it towards something else. They will. I know PlayStation will be drinking wine in their, you know, parties and having a great time, being happy about it. But even worst case scenario, it doesn't happen. They're not doomed. It is not some huge indictment on them if it fails. It's just well, that sucks. It didn't happen. But then they can regroup and use that money for other things and time and resources to others. They will respond well, even if it does not go through. It is not a doomsday. The sun has stopped, you know, shining. There's a giant meteor heading towards Earth. A cataclysmic event. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. At the end of the day, we'll be fine. Just treat it like if Xbox found an extra $20, but it's actually a huge publisher versus they didn't find it. It's like, in the end, you would like to have the extra, but if you don't have it, you're okay. It was a once in a blue moon opportunity they stumbled upon, and so they took a chance. Passes, great. Not, oh well, they'll use their resources to something else. It is not doomsday.
Yeah, I just want it to be done. Like, if anyone in chat is, like, agreeing with us, like, you're kind of sick of the whole Activision talk, like, or should I say acquisition talk. Like, I get it. It's just, it is what it is. And plus, it doesn't help that every game has been delayed into next year, meaning, like, all the big stories are just kind of shifting in all the time. Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, one of the final topics before we get into it, if you're enjoying the show, like, subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps the channel out. Yeah. So anyway, you want to talk about cash grabs, remakes, and remasters, Logan. Now, what do you mean by that? Because I can kind of guess where you're going with this.
Well, Jamie, what do you think about $70 for a game you played 5 years ago? What are your thoughts on that?
It's stupid. It's really stupid. Like, I don't care how much the pound crashes because of our economy tanking. £70, like, and I'll even say for the dollar as well. $70 for a game's stupid. It really is. We shouldn't be charged that much for video games because guess what? People aren't making more as they were like 5 years ago. People are making pretty much the exact same amount, and they're raising the cost of games that much. It makes no sense considering they all have revenue streams from all over the place. Like look PlayStation. They have to be brought up because they were kind of one of the defining factors into making games $70. Like they raised the price, and people went with it and said it's okay. $70, £70 games aren't okay. They're just not. Why is because here's the thing: people celebrating $70 are gonna be okay with $80 next generation. You can bloody bet that and take that to the bank. I don't care if next generation, 6 years or 7 years from now, clip this. People will be okay. These people will be okay with $80 games, and I do not want to see £80 games on the shelf. I really don't, and it's horrible. And here's the thing: like, it came out the other day that PlayStation are remaking / remaster. I'm just going to say remastering. I don't think they're remaking a 5-year-old game, but they're going to be remastering Horizon Zero Dawn. And I'm just looking at the landscape, and it's like there's a lot of remakes and remasters at the minute. You know, Alone in the Dark getting remade. That's been an abandoned IP for over a decade. I actually get it. Dead Space needs to come back, and that's the only way it can come back. I get it, but it just seems like last generation, people were complaining for the first 4 years that every game was coming out was a remaster. Like Saints Row remaster, Arkham remasters, Skyrim remaster, Bioshock remaster, and now people are just talking about remakes all the time. And here's the thing, right? People have blurred the lines so much with remakes and remasters that they put an asterisk in the middle and say, they literally interchange them two, right? Is Total Recall from 2012 a remaster? No, it's a remake and it's terrible, right? Has some cool special effects in it and a cool car chase, and it's got Kate Beckinsale in it. But other than that, it's a crap film. It's a crap film, right? And like, the only thing it has in common with Total Recall is some of the themes and the fact that, you know, it's called Total Recall and it's crap, right? And I saw that at the cinema and I'm never going to get my money back, you know. But then you have these games where they use the same dialogue and the same animations and they have prettier graphics and they call it a remake. And then they charge them $70 for that remake. That is mind-boggling. And some of these games have less content. Like, how does that make any sense whatsoever? It doesn't make any sense. You know, let's look at Gears of War Ultimate Edition. I've brought this up before, but really think about this. Gears of War Ultimate Edition is the first game completely rebuilt from the ground up visuals in Unreal Engine 4. No reused assets outside of voice acting. The cutscenes are completely remade and redirected. It has the cut content from the PC version, and it has multiplayer. It came out at $40, and it's basically a remake in the same vein as The Last of Us. But people don't call it that because it's called Ultimate Edition, and it's referred to as a remaster. But you have people calling remasters remakes to generate $70. Because guess what? Mass Effect Legendary Edition, 3 games, all DLC, $60. Nobody complained because you're getting bloody good value there. And I will shill that game every day of my life. Anyway, but it's just ridiculous. We're seeing these games announced left and right. Like Dead Space, like we were talking about earlier in the show, $70. Like even if you can't get the discount, and even with the discount, it's a ridiculous price. And I understand why people may not buy it because of that. But ever since games start going $70, we're hearing about games selling less all the time. It's because that extra $10 is making people go, you know what? I'll wait. Because that $10 is just an extra $10 or £10. Like, Logan, like, I know you want to bring up this topic, but it's like the $10 / £10 thing added onto games is really kind of like, you know, some people are cheering it and some people don't like it. And the people that don't like it have an actual reason. And it's like, you mentioned the cash grabs and the remakes and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, man, where are you at with this?
To me, I don't like the price, but above that, it's just the concept of even if it wasn't $70, say it was 60 or just regular price for that you are taking a game from literally just 5 years ago and that looks and runs great on the PS5. I mean, beautifully. The fact that you're taking that and just tweaking it a tad bit and then sending it out again just 5 years later, full price, just to get it out there again to tie in with a show. It's madness. Yes, I don't like the price of Dead Space remake, but to me, it's one thing to resurrect a dead IP that hasn't been seen, period. Like it came out in 2008. That's 15 years ago by the time it comes out next year. And the studio that originally made it is dead. It is part of EA's infamous graveyard. We talk about Google's graveyard of projects they've killed. EA's graveyard is quite full. Pour one out for Visceral. But this is the one chance that game has to actually come back and be a franchise again. Maybe get shows, other things. Like, this is its one ticket. We know EA and their track record on giving things chances. Jedi Fallen Order made them where they've considered single player games again. This one is a big opportunity. People support it. There's a good chance more Dead Space comes. So, in the light of the greater good, I'm okay with the $70 on this just to get it out there and support it. It's been gone for ages. It's back. This is its chance. But for a game that I literally almost platinumed, I'm like missing one trophy on. It came out just 5 years ago, and it runs and looks beautifully. And just to send that out again and charge at least 60 for it, I'm going to assume. Just 5 years later is madness. You have all these IPs that people have been begging Sony to bring back. Like, you have Dragoon, you have Sly Cooper, you have SOCOM, Ape Escape, Siphon Filter, Infamous, Killzone, Resistance. Like, that's just a few off the top of my head. They have so many IP from their over 20 years that are glorious that people want to have another chance at. And you're just doing this again with another game that literally just came out. Like The Last of Us remake and now this. Like, if we see a God of War remake, oh my goodness, don't even just. I just not a fan of it. If you're gonna remake a game or remaster a game, do one that's been gone for quite a while. Don't do one that literally just came out and slightly tweak it. That's just comical.
Yeah, I mean, I bring up the whole PlayStation thing because it may set a bad precedent. Like, look at Microsoft. The only thing they've came out with in the past ever is, Halo. What was it called? Anniversary. Yeah, Halo Anniversary, and I think that was 2010. And that came with multiplayer for Halo Reach with the map pack, and that was well worth its money. I think that came out as £35 in the UK. And you have Halo 2 Anniversary, which is in the collection, which was well worth its money. That came out at like £40 in the UK. And those were like visual remakes from the ground up in, different engine stuff. And you can go back and forth by pressing the select button. And then you had, Gears of War Ultimate Edition. Outside of that, Microsoft hasn't really touched remakes or remasters. Yeah, you do have the Wasteland remaster, which is actually a remake. And see, that's another problem with these like companies naming games. Remastered and remake get interchanged all the time now. Sometimes it's for price, and sometimes it's for a reason that doesn't make sense. Like, I just don't get it. And I'm just looking at the game's prices right now, and it's like, it looks like Alone in the Dark. The remake may be £54. So I don't know what that'll be in dollars, but either way, THQ's pricing seems to be fair so far. But yeah, I don't like the whole $70 game thing. Like, we've talked about this before, and it gets brought up a lot. But like, look, the economy's crashing. The cost of living has gone up a lot. Like, I don't know if you've seen in the news over there in the US, but like British bills are going up like £2,000, like for power. It's like it's ridiculous. It's and then they expect us to get charged more for games. Like it's stupid. It's stupid. And whenever you bring it up, people go, "Well, Microsoft's going to raise the price of games," but they haven't. Like they haven't actually raised the price of games yet, so we can't talk about it. Like, and even if they did, which I'm saying that they shouldn't, you can also play the games in the service. So there's that. But like Microsoft hasn't raised the price of games. Hell, last generation, when all the other companies in the UK were raising the prices to £55 or £50, Microsoft kept their games at $39.99 throughout the entire generation. So that leads me to believe that Microsoft's going to keep the price at what it is now. But like, you know, seeing these games come out just like remasters, remakes, and people interchanging there, like for people that don't know me personally, when people mix words up, it really grinds my gears. So like the other day, I posted something about Alien Isolation, I think, and someone said, "Wouldn't it be cool if this got a remake?" It's 6 years old. Like why do you want a remake of this? No, if anyone posts on Twitter regularly, just now and then you'll notice someone say, "Wouldn't it be cool if this get a remake?" Why? Why do you want a remake of a modern game? Stop it. Stop it. Right? I'm sick of it. And the thing is, if these games do get remakes that people want, they're going to get charged $70. Like, people are getting charged ridiculous now, and it's just stupid. And I know this is a bit of a rant and a weird topic, but like, I think that we are in a weird place in this generation because we're 2 years into the generation. People complain about there being not enough games out. You know, people talk about when are we getting mid-gen refreshes when the bloody games haven't dropped yet. Like, everything got delayed into next year. And here's the thing, I'm fine with delays. I understand why. If people could barely work with Excel and spreadsheets during the pandemic, how the hell are they going to make bloody video games? So I understand it. But how are people talking about mid-gen refreshes when we've barely had any games this generation? Everything's gotten delayed. Everything. There's like, I've got a list of games on my phone that's coming out next year. There's like 40 games coming out in the first 2 months of 2023. Next-gen gaming kind of starts next year. Yes, we've had some really cool titles. We've had, you know, the Flight Sims, the God of War's out soon and all that stuff. You know, I'm looking at my shelf, you know, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, Soul Hackers 2 recently came out, Dying Light 2, but like our gaming libraries would have been a lot bigger if, well, how many game delays have been delayed this year? 50? I'm guessing so, because every time Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say, it feels like almost every major game announced within the last 2.5 years has been delayed, like point blank, almost every single one, except for like one or two. It's been just expected. If I see a game announced, I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to get delayed.
Like really think about whenever a game's been announced or shown off, people say, "Oh, I expect it to get delayed." Like that comes with the territory now. People say that because they're so used to game delays, and the only games that seem to be coming out on schedule are remasters and remakes. And like, even though I'm fine with these old games coming back in whatever way, it's like I'm kind of sick of just being remakes and just being remasters. Like, that's all there is at the minute. That's all people talk about. And games that don't, like, why would Horizon Zero Dawn need a remaster? Because when we moved from the PS3 and the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, we had no backwards compatibility. So it made sense for remasters to happen. So we got a lot of remasters, right? But moving to the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5, people have these consoles, these x86 architecture machines, where you can get upgrades. We got upgrades mid-gen last gen, but now that we're in an era where you can get upgrades, companies are finding a way to nickel and dime you when they don't need to. Because guess what? A lot of games are getting upgrades for free, right? The Witcher came out in 2015. It's getting an upgrade in 2022. Right? It's not a remaster to ground up. It's not. Look, really think about this. Even if you are kidding, right? And anyone listening, right? The whole term ground up remake makes no sense, right? You have this huge open world. Horizon Zero Dawn still looks good, by the way. Like, they aren't remaking every asset in that game from the ground up. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Like, Spider-Man Remastered. What did they remaster? They changed the face of the dude. It had higher resolution and higher frame rates. That's it. And it was called a remaster. When other developers have been putting out the same thing, but as free upgrades for other games. Like, it's ridiculous. Cyberpunk got a free next-gen upgrade. Dying Light, free next-gen upgrade. Every game on my shelf in the past 5 years, pretty much, has got a free next-gen upgrade. Very few developers have charged for it. 505 Games and Control with Remedy, they charged for a completely different version. People lost it and made very vocal things about it. And
Rightfully so.
yeah, in 505, I think they said afterwards like they regret charging people for it afterwards. You know, and, like, I think these companies are just getting away with crap. Like, Sony can pretty much get away with murder at this point. like charging people for, like, The Last of Us on PS3 looks incredible to this day, in my opinion. And then they came out with a remaster in 2014 when it made sense because there was no backwards compatibility. The cell processor was a very, complicated thing to program for, so that made sense. But they remade it, but it's the same content, it's the same voice acting, so how is it a remake? It's got the same animations, and they were using the term motion matching. Okay, it's got the same animations. And it's like, they're using the interchanging remake and remaster for $70. Other companies are doing this as well, it's not just Sony. It's stupid. Melina Williams, I want a Lost Odyssey remake. Look, wouldn't it be cool to see Lost Odyssey come back? But really, does it need a remake?
It needs a sequel.
Like, a sequel, yeah. And, like, I'd take 4K 60, but, like, why a remake? I just don't get it. I'm not having a go at you, by the way, who mentioned that. But, like, why? What, so you want brand new cutscenes, brand new voice acting with a different cast? You want different script, different areas? Or do you just want a fancy remaster? Because, look, Mass Effect 1 in Legendary Edition has remade assets from the ground up, fixed textures from, like, the certain, like, sky textures and stuff. But the first game in Legendary Edition is essentially the same game with completely rebuilt graphics and rebuilt gameplay. Right? That's it. And what they did for the first game did amazing. Right? Incredible job they did for the first game. And it's like, it was $60 for all 3 games, all expansions. I don't know, like, I know people need to speak with their wallet, but it's gonna become a dangerous precedent when you have these, I'm doing air quotes, remakes come out and sell well, when other developers and publishers will look at that and charge more, and $70 will become more of the norm. Because if you look at games coming out the next year, there's a lot of games still don't have prices. I wonder why. It's because they're waiting for it to be the norm. Right? There's a lot of games in the UK don't have prices. Why? They're waiting for £70 to be more accepted. It will be in 6 months because these games are still going to sell. Unless it's Skull and Bones. I don't see that selling well at £70. My God, what were they thinking?
Yeah, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
I think.
Like, the combat looks cool, by the way. Bit of a tangent, but, like, what were they thinking? It has less content than Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That came out in 2013, and that came out at I think that was £45 in the UK. And yeah, it's weird. But yeah, Logan, have you got anything else on this topic? Because I've been rambling for 5 minutes on prices.
Oh, I would say that, like, Lost Odyssey brought up, I'd be cool with a remake of it. Like, it's one of my favorite games ever, and it's my favorite JRPG ever. I mean, if a remake is what it took to bring it back, then yeah, sure, I'd be cool for it, or a remaster. What I want most of all is a sequel. But if that was how Microsoft could get it back into modern audiences and carry the IP forward, then so be it. I love Lost Odyssey. Wouldn't mind seeing Blue Dragon as well. Just, like, it is an issue that Microsoft has had way too many one and done IPs. Where I I know we mainly talk positive, but there are a few things that they could work on, and that is one of them. They've had a bunch of IP that they release, and if it doesn't hit a certain threshold in the past, then it just gets canned and gets chained in the basement and never sees the light of day again in the IP warehouse. It's just like Recore, Quantum Break, Sunset Overdrive, even though it's owned by PlayStation now. Just Cameo. There's so many cool IP they have that just they're one and dones, and it's hard to create investment when they treat games like that. So to me, if remakes for those type of games to give them another shot at life and see how they do, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, like I'm not arguing with anyone in chat or you that when I say that I don't want remakes of 360 games because honestly, when I fire up a 360 generation game, I think it still looks and plays good. Maybe I have this nostalgia thing in the back of my head where everything just looks magical still, but I think games look and play good still. Do I think Lost Odyssey could do with some upgrades like visuals? Yeah, like higher resolution textures and things like quality of life upgrades because as a JRPG, that game is bloody hard, right? Hard as nails. One of the first bosses you fight, the big giant blue worm, is one of the hardest bosses in the entire game. And you're thrown into the deep end not knowing how to fight, right? So I understand, yeah, quality of life features would be cool for stuff like that. Also, a PC release would make sense, because I only just realised it's not on PC, which, I think people would like that on PC as well. But yeah, here's the thing, right? I know it's a bit off topic. I think Microsoft should really have one of their studios or, a partnered studio that makes either remasters that would also be in Game Pass or upgrades for these games.
100%.
Because the amount of IP they have, old games, and when the Activision thing comes into question, they have things like, I'm going to bring it up for the 40,000th time for the people in the back. Singularity. I want that to come back, and, even if it's just BC or port, I don't care. We need more games from Microsoft. Like you're saying, the one-and-done games. Like, look, Recore will never get a sequel. Quantum Break will never get a sequel. Do I want sequels to Quantum Break? Yep. And I think if Game Pass was around longer, we would actually see sequels because those games were kind of hurt by other factors. The resolution debate affected Quantum Break, all that stuff. That's a topic for another day. Yeah, Logan, have you got anything else for the show before we close out?
No, just that I 100% agree with you on a remake or remaster studio. There's been for about a year now rumor about them potentially building a studio, a artifact or relic or something studio where they would build remakes or remasters of their IP. I hope that's true, and if it's not true, I hope they actually do it and make one or purchase a studio like a Blue Point was purchased by Sony to handle that kind of thing because they have so many IP, even Rare alone. You could have a studio devoted just to farming old Rare IP. There's just so many cool games that they have that are just rotting in storage. Like, give them another chance. You might find a new gem. Even if it flops, well, it's in Game Pass. It'll find its audience that some people might like it and they'll play it. But you have real gold, some gems in there. Just give them another chance.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things I think Microsoft should listen to feedback from because, people would like to see, like, a Crash Bandicoot style, remake for Banjo because that game's old enough, kind of needs it. That was a Nintendo 64 game, so it kind of needs that love. Hopefully that happens. But yeah, by the way, when I have a tangent about remakes and remasters, it's just because I think the things that we've already got look and perform fine. Like, would a 4K upgrade for stuff be good? Yeah. Would a FPS boost be good? Yeah, of course. But, like, I just don't want people to get the hopes up and over-expect things. Like, really think about it. People want remakes of everything now. Everything. I've even recently heard people say they want a remake of The Witcher 3. Like, in what universe does that make sense? Like, stop wishing for remakes of everything, everyone. That's probably just me. Anyway, that's enough ranting for today. Everyone in chat's been awesome, and the porn bots have been all over the place. They've been bad this week, but we move. Everyone in chat has been awesome. We hope everyone has a good week. We'll be back at the exact same time next week. I have a video dropping this week, which took a long time putting together, and it'll make sense when people watch it. And back to doing weekly videos, which finally I can get back to doing. I mean, schedule's freed up and all that stuff, which I'll talk about in the video. But anyway, Logan, have you got anything cool coming up?
Not at the moment, but currently planning.
All right, cool. Well, I'll keep everyone posted. Our social media stuff is in the link down below. And, yeah, the porn bot things. Again, I blame Frostbite for the porn bots. I'm sorry for them popping up in chat. Could only get rid of them so fast. Anyway, everyone, chat's been awesome. We are out. We hope you all have a good week. Peace.